What's going on YouTube? I hope everyone's doing well. This is my first video since a lot has happened. If you are playing Diablo 4, I'm going to do my best to kind of introduce you to Diablo, and this video is going to break down some hints and tricks. I'm also going to put links in the description for websites that can help you out. Whether you're looking for a leveling guide, you have Max Roll, there's a D4 planner, there's a bunch of different websites where you can see builds at. I will be also uploading my own builds. There are going to be a lot of meta builds, and you can kind of find that on this platform as well. But it is fun to kind of dive in and try different things out as well. Like, I just don't want to sit here and only use one thing. I want to use a bunch of different things because this game has so many limitless possibilities. And if you're watching this and you're wondering why I can't say limitless, is because my brain is already being filled with all of this info because there's so much to do. So currently I'm playing on a rogue character. As a rogue, you can play up close or you can play far because you have knives and you have an arrow. When you start out Diablo, when you click start game, you're going to get an option of 5 different classes. And I'm going to do my best to try to just break down what each class kind of does. Now, there's no such thing as a bad class in Diablo. If you find the right piece for your setup, it's basically going to bring your game from mid-tier to high tier, right? Perfect example, the sorcerer has a chest piece that like incredibly boosts his damage for one of the builds. So each one is definitely different. Now, when you come in, you're going to hit create a new character. Barbarian. We can even see the overview here for the Barbarian. Barbarians are tough. They use bleed damage. That means that they can slash, cause enemies to bleed, and to deal damage over time. One of the cool things about them, too, is that, I don't know if you ever looked this up or if you ever heard anyone talk about, like, a whirlwind Barbarian, but basically they're just twisting around, and as they're twisting around, they're taking less damage, and they can cause stuff to, take damage over time using this bleed. If you like big boys with big axes, Barbarian might be your choice. Remember, Barbarians are not bad. They actually put out a lot of damage in this game. Necro. Necro is one of those classes where you bring skeletons back to life, right? So they call them skellies. Necro has bone magic, blood magic. The Necromancer is, I would say, one of the stronger classes to start out with because you have a bunch of allies, meaning a lot of ads are going to focus on them where you still get to kind of do damage. Now, when I played the beta, the Necromancer, the first time I played the beta was very strong. Blizzard's doing their best to kind of like even this out. And my friend Beeman, actually, he's been playing Necromancer. He's been enjoying it because the Necro has a lot of different builds that you can work with. So if you like playing with skulls, bringing stuff back to life, Necromancer might be the play for you. Now, next is Sorcerer. If you like magic, like that wand, you have that Harry Potter fantasy, Sorcerer might be the thing for you. Sorcerers are always in a great place in terms of this game. They're strong. The only thing about sorcerers is they don't really have a close-up game unless you end up with that chest piece that I was talking about, because it's very nice. Now, Rogue was what I was playing. If you're like an assassin / hunter, all right, you have your knives, your arrows, and your bow, and you can play stealth, and you can set up traps. And that's one thing that a lot of people kind of like about Rogue. Last but not least, you have a druid. You're working with earth magic. You have animals. You can become a werewolf. You can become a bear wolf. Even your wolves could become werewolves themselves. You have crows that also come to help you that make enemies vulnerable. You have a tornado that you can send out that twists over time. And you can also do a lot of earth-bending stuff. Depending on your playstyle, choose wisely. But here's the thing. Diablo doesn't limit you on how many characters you can make. You can have one of each. Let's just say that they each take a lot of time to kind of go into. Okay, and in the future, I'm pretty sure they're going to bring more classes like Crusader or Monk and so on. Diablo has confirmed that they have 2 DLCs coming up. I'm going to jump in the game as my rogue because I kind of want to go over a few things that are in the game that you should probably pay attention to. So when you're starting out, you're going to have the storyline. You're going to want to follow that. As you follow the storyline, it's going to put you in a town. And when you get into the town, you're going to have something called a waypoint. The waypoint basically allows you to teleport to that position anytime you like. Now, another neat thing that you can do here in game is this. My button right now is T, which is for teleporting. Normally, if you hover over this area that I'm looking at, whatever the button is here, if you're playing on controller, will show you the button for you to use the teleporter. Now, the cool thing about portals is this. If I go anywhere on this map and I need to go back to a town, all I have to do is hit the T button for me, which would take me back to town. One thing that I want to talk about is when it comes to how much you can hold, you can only hold 30 things. So there's going to be times where you want to come back and you want to sell this stuff, right? There's going to be times where you want to come back and you want to salvage your gear. This allows you to do that. But if you leave the town, like if you run outside of the town, the portal that you have created is going to go away. All right? So if you're in a dungeon and you travel back to a town, make sure you don't leave that town. Make sure you go back to your portal. And what I mean by this is this. All right, so you see I left the town, right? I'm going to hang out in this little spot here. Now, if I hit the T button, right, it's going to pull me. Well, I'm kind of close to the town. It's probably not going to do it. Let's go a little further down. All right. Are you going to put me in town? There it is. All right. So now I'm back in town. You can see that my portal's here, right? So now I can be like, oh, I have some stuff I need to sell, right? I come up to the weapon person and I click on my stuff and I sell it, right? Now, instead of leaving town, right, all I have to do is go through this portal again and it takes me to where I'm at. So if you're in the middle of a dungeon and your stuff is full and you want to get rid of it, right? You teleport. You go to that town. You drop what you need to. Another thing is our armor. If you die a few times, your armor starts to lose its durability. Okay, and there's going to be times where you need to go back to town and fix that. Teleports in this game is pretty neat because if you're playing with a friend, for example, and they're in a certain area, they're going to have a portal in town that you can go through to get directly to them. Let's say that there's a world boss and your friend is already at that world boss. If you go into one of the main towns, you are going to be able to go through a portal to teleport to them. What I mean by main town is this as well, okay? So as I'm highlighted over this waypoint, you can see all the services that are being given to me at this town. There's 12 services. There's going to be certain towns that don't have 12 services. You can see that this one doesn't have anything at all. This one has about 5 of them. This one has 3, right? So if we're talking about main towns, you're always going to see about 12 things. You see that? Geeko is another main town. So you're going to see 12 services. If you go there, that means that if you have someone on your team with you, you're going to see their portal as well. Okay? So that's one instance. Now, if you're in a dungeon and you just want to go outside the dungeon, you can either click on the little hallway stair when you're done, or for me, my button is E. When I press E, there's an option here to leave dungeon. And if I could click on that, it's going to bring me back to the beginning of the dungeon. So that means that I don't have to run back all the way out of the dungeon. Now, as you're leveling, you're going to notice that your potions are going to level up. That means that your potion gets to do more. So now I want to go through the vendors. All right. So we're going to start out with the potion guy right here, the Alchemist. Okay. So as you're playing, you're going to start out with a weak healing potion. Once you get to level 10, you're going to come back to this guy and you're going to be able to upgrade it. And as you go up in levels, you're going to continuously have upgrades for this. So it goes from healing 17 to 48 to 80, and the number goes on. All right. Now, this potion guy also does multiple things for you. There's things called elixir. Okay. And when you craft this stuff, it's to help you out in game. So there's elixir to help you out with cold, with poison, with fire, with lightning. Doesn't matter, you know, what it is, but there's potions for most things. There's potions that bring up your attack speed. There's potions that help you out with your precision. That means that you could do critical strikes. And as you level up, the potions options are going to go up as well, okay? Now, if you're asking me, where do you find this on your character? I'm going to tell you that if you look at your consumables, you're going to have potions here. There's going to be random potions that drop in game as well. This is the place that you can find it. Now, as a new player, this is going to sound crazy, but if you have potions as a new player, do me a favor, okay? Use it. Doesn't matter if you don't need it. Use it. Why? Because you can see here it says increase cold resist by 15%, right? But that's not why I'm telling you to use it. I'm telling you to use it because your experience goes up by 5% for 30 minutes. Okay? Doesn't matter if you need it or not. Use it because you're going to get more experience, meaning you get to level up a bit faster. Now, if you're in a team, if someone joins you, you're going to have a 5% XP buff as well. And that's going to stack with what we have here. The neat thing about the 5% XP when you have someone on your team is that it counts for each person on the team. So if there's 2 people, you have 10%. If there's 3, you have 15. If there's 4, you have 20% extra XP. The game does get harder, though. The game scales depending on how many people you have on your team. You can have a max of 4. If you're killing enemies by yourself and your friend joined, that enemy now has a little bit more health. Another neat thing, too, that I like about this is besides the game being cross-play, if someone joins your team, depending on what world tier they're in, most of the time, if it's tier 1 or tier 2, the enemies are going to be at that person's level, meaning they don't have to worry about it, right? But if you get to tier 3 and tier 4, those enemies are going to be above your power. Tier 1 and tier 2, if I'm 50, right, those enemies are going to be at 50 for me. If my friend that joins me is level 12, those enemies are going to be at 12 for them. But as soon as you get to tier 3 and tier 4, that's going to be a completely different story. There's going to be ways that you can refine resources. The reason why I say this is because when you're crafting all this stuff, you have different materials that you need to know about, right? Oh, I need this material. I need that material. Now, as you're playing the game, you're going to gather a bunch of material just randomly by picking it up. You don't have to pay attention to that. You don't need to min-max and be like, I need to go to this area to farm for this, right? Another way to kind of check your materials is by clicking on the material stat area here. And on the top right, you're going to see what you have. Plants, ore, skins, monster part, or salvage, right? They're all here in this tab here. And the neat thing about the potion guy is this. You can actually switch out your crafting materials for other stuff. So let's say that I need gallon wine, right? I can make that. I can craft that from a different material that I have. So you don't really have to go out there and like go look for one thing. You can make these things from other things, okay? So it tells you, perfect example, lifespan. If I need to make it, I can use Gallovine. And the neat thing is I can make Gallovine from like 5 things here, right? So I have 5 options to make Gallovine. So that means if I need more Hollow Mouse or Lifespan, I can easily just convert most of these into Gallovines and then make more Lifespan. So if you're out there, you don't have to go out crazy and start searching for materials out in the open world. And last but not least, you have instances that you can create, okay? Now, instances do different things, right? This one increases all resistance by 10% and armor by 150 for every nearby player for 20 minutes. These do not give you the XP or anything, but they do help out if you're going to do something, an activity alone, and you feel like, especially if you're in a team and you feel like you might need one of these. Another thing that I want to go over about the elixirs is they don't stack. The game only allows you to use 1 elixir at a time. If I pop one of these guys here, you're going to see that it shows up that I have shadow resistance on. If I decide, oh, I don't want shadow resistance, I want one of these guys here, right? It will switch. You're never going to be able to have more than 1. And that is what the Alchemist does. His logo looks like a little bowl with a crusher in it. If you're out there fighting and you get back to town and your health is kind of low, you can come over here to Arnold or any town, and whenever you see a heart, they're healers. And if you come up to them, it will fill up all your potion and all your health, okay? So you can use this interaction here if you need to, okay? So that's what the heart is for. Now, I kind of want to go into this vendor here. This is the Blacksmith, okay? With the Blacksmith, you can salvage things, okay? Now, what I like to do for the Blacksmith is this. I always like to mark my stuff as junk. So perfect example here, I have this amulet. The button for me is a spacebar, and I can mark it as junk. When I come here, if I mark a bunch of things as junk, I can easily salvage it here by just clicking all junk. Bam. When that is salvaged, it shows me what material that I got here. Another thing that you can do is this. You can just click on this and then go to what you need to, right? And you can salvage. Okay, it is going to ask you if are you sure you want to destroy some stuff, right? If you click accept, boom, it gives you all the things that you see here. All right, so you can also just by clicking this, you can do that. This is where you also repair your gear. If I'm looking at my character, you can see at the bottom here, it says sell value and durability. Right now, my durability is at 100. Whenever your durability gets down, this is the place that you go in order to repair it. There's also going to be a red sword in game that's going to show up like right here above your tab. And it basically tells you that, hey man, you have to go back to town. You need to repair your gear because your gear is about to break. Next, this guy is where you can go to upgrade your weapons and your armor. So you're going to notice that my armor has 4 golden circles on it. The reason why it has 4 golden circles on it is because I came to the blacksmith and I upgraded it. It's going to show you what materials you need to do it with. And once you do that, right, if I click on upgrade here, you're going to notice that my gear just got fully upgraded. Same thing here. If I wanted to upgrade my weapon, I come down, I upgrade it. Another thing you need to start paying attention to is going to be your gold, because gold is required to kind of do all this stuff. Gold is required to repair your stuff. Gold is required to upgrade your stuff. You do have the weapons vendor. You're not really going to come here and buy anything from the weapons vendor because I feel like this is just all, you don't need it. Like this costs too much just for one pair of things here. You know, you don't need it. Now, what you could do is this. Instead of salvaging your gear, you can sell it. Okay, so if you want to sell your gear, you mark it as junk. You come over to this lady here and you can right click to sell. Okay, so anything that you want to sell, I mean, perfect example, if I want to sell this topaz here, if I right click it, boom. And the funny thing is you can also buy stuff back. So if you sell something by mistake and if you catch it, you can buy it back. Now we have the armor vendor. The armor vendor basically does the same thing as the weapons vendor. If you want to just sell a lot of your materials that's on you, that's the perfect place to go. Now this next vendor is called the Occultist, and a lot of people always ask me about aspects and fragments. I'm gonna go to my stash. If you're in town and you ever need to go to your stash, you're gonna see that it's this little box here. Okay, so I'm gonna head over to my stash. And you always notice whenever you have your stash, you're gonna have your wardrobe next to it. Okay, so your stash, when you first start out, you only have one, and it costs 100K to kind of open up the next and the next and the next, right? This is account base, so anything that you have here, right? When you make a different character, those characters will also have the same things here. Now, I kind of wanted to kind of keep some of this stuff so I can show how this works. So I'm gonna pull some of this stuff out because I don't really need it at the moment. All right. So now the neat thing is this: in the game, there's things called there's aspects, right? And aspects drop on legendary gear. Okay, you can see here, perfect example. As I'm reading this, the gold part on my weapon says you have 13% increased critical strike chance against injured enemies. While you're healthy, you gain 26 increased crowd control duration. Now let's say that I got another piece of armor, or I have another weapon, and I want to move this aspect to a different weapon, right? Here's what I need to do. The Occultist, or the Occultist, is the great place to do that. Now, you can imprint aspects, you can extract aspects, you can craft sigils, you can salvage sigils, and you can enchant items. We're going to go over each thing here. So extracting. Once again, let's say I have a weapon, right? And let's say these two weapons have two different things on there, but I want to move the 13% increased strike to this weapon here. Here's what I do. I'm going to put this weapon here. I can also right-click the weapon as well. If you right-click this weapon, it's going to go into here. Now you're going to see it. It says aspect preview. One of the cool things here is this. It says allowed item types. It tells you exactly, if you take this aspect out, what armor or what weapon it can go on, okay? So here it says one-handed weapon, two-handed weapon, gloves, amulet, and ring. And as you notice here, a two-handed weapon is going to give me 100% increase, Okay, so the power on this is going to go up. That means that instead of seeing the 13% increase and the 26 increase crowd control, I'm probably going to see a higher number. So it does cost to extract the aspect, right? So when I extract this aspect, you're going to notice that it's going to show up in my aspect tab here. Here it is. Now, the neat thing about this is that I can now imprint this onto this weapon here from my inventory. Now, if I wanted to imprint a different aspect that I unlock by finishing the dungeon, right? Because there's aspects in the world that you can unlock by finishing a dungeon, and each dungeon has a different type. So as you can see, I can kind of go through the list. If I click on show my class only, it's going to show me things that I've acquired through dungeons only for my class. And another neat thing is it shows you things that you haven't gotten for your class yet. And it also tells you which dungeon you need to do. Perfect example, it says my marksman skill has up to 10% chance to create an arrow storm at the enemy's location. If I want to unlock this, I need to go complete Holland Warren in Scotland. It tells me exactly where I need to go to pick this up. If you're one of those people that like to finish everything, as you're working on this, you kind of want to do something like this. You want to go and make sure that you get you do everything that you can to get all the aspects available to you, because you might be switching out your build, okay? But if I'm doing this from my inventory, I'm going to click on aspects, and I'm going to click on the 13% increase critical strike chance. You're going to notice that, remember, this said 13%, right? If I imprint this, you see my imprint, right? It says now that I have 26 increase. And while I'm healthy, I have 52 increased crowd control. Do you see the difference? It went from being 13 and 26 to being 26 and 52. The reason why I was saying that is because they allow item type, okay? Now, let's say I wanted to put this on a glove, a ring, or a one-handed weapon. We won't see a difference. So let me find a ring. So if I put this on a ring, you see that? It is only 13% and is only 26. So if I put an amulet here, you can see that I got the 50%. So it went to 20 and 39. But if I'm on a two-handed weapon, it goes up more. So when you're looking at your aspects, it will tell you exactly which item types that it's going to work very well on. Now, let's say for the same item, if I wanted to imprint something from my codex and I click on show my class only, I can also do that. So if I click on this, you're going to notice that it's going to put it here. And it's going to tell me exactly what I'm going to get. Now, next are going to be sigils. As you're playing the game, sigils are going to be something that you can use for nightmare dungeons. So it tells you the different tiers. This is tier 1 to 5. This is tier 6 to 10. And as you're playing the game, some of these will drop, and you're going to need sigil powder. And as you go up in tier, you're going to see that you have more and more and more of the sigils. And this is how you do nightmare dungeons. You craft a sigil. When you use it, it's going to be a random dungeon that becomes a nightmare. But for this, it already tells me this. It says, Essential Nightmare Sigil, tier 21, Core Dragon, Barracks, and Fracture Peaks. So that means that I'm going to turn that dungeon into a nightmare dungeon. It also tells me my fixes as well. It says Empowered Elite, Poison Enchanted, Poison Damage, Monster Shadow Resist, and Monster Crowd Control. And to be fair, that sounds disgusting, because I hate poison, okay? So what you can do is you can also salvage your sigils. When you do that, remember, you can always just click on this thing and use it, right? When you do that, you get the materials called sigil powder, which allows you to craft, your sigil. Now, let's say that I wanted to make a tier 71 to 80, for example, right? It's going to cost me 400 of my mats. Let's say that you get useless sigils. You can just turn them in, right? You can break them down. And once you break them down, you can then make something better. Have you noticed that I didn't get to choose which dungeon I was going to do? It just gave me a different dungeon. This one is Logs, Archives, and Fracture Peaks, okay? And this one's going to have Lightning Storm, Monster Shadow damage over time, Monster Physical Resist, and Barrier Breakers, okay? So if you're out there, you wonder my nightmare dungeons, that's how it works. And as soon as you use this, it's going to ask you, do you want to turn this on? Once you turn it on, you go do that nightmare dungeon with your friends. And to be fair, nightmare dungeons are another way to basically get XP up pretty quickly. Last but not least, this is called enchanting items. If you ever play any game that allows you to re-roll stuff on your armor, this is basically what this is, okay? So let's say that I have these pair of boots. The one thing that I cannot change is, it says evade grant 50% movement for 1 second, right? You see that thing at the top there? Well, I can't change that because that's basically tied on the thing. Same thing here, right? Anything, well, I can't really go up to it, but for this item here, it says 16.7% resistance to all elements, right? I cannot change that. I can only change the 4 things under it. I also can't change the aspect. Remember, the aspect, you can extract and you can imprint aspect. Another neat thing that I need to go back to is this. When you imprint an aspect on an item, you can't take it out. For example, I just want to show this. Right now, I can extract from this weapon, okay? I can extract this aspect from this weapon. If I decide to imprint on this weapon, I'm just going to put a random thing on it, right? If I decide to imprint on this weapon, right, I can no longer extract anything from this weapon. It's already been imprinted. So if you get a good aspect and that aspect is not in your catalog, right, do not just put on any piece of gear. You want to make sure that you put that on the proper piece of gear because you're going to have to find that aspect again on another legendary item before you can use it. It's kind of cool that I actually went back to do that because that is going to be very important. Because a lot of people are going to be like, oh, I imprinted this. How come I can't take it out and put on the next thing? Once you imprint something, you can't take it out of that thing anymore, okay? Now let's go back to enchanted items. So perfect example, I have this ancestral legendary bow, right? It says I have 40% damage to distant enemies, which is cool. Let's say that my build, I'm not chilling enemies, but I'm using poison on enemies, right? For example, here's where it goes down. You get to change this, okay? You get to change one thing on your item. So that means if I click on this area here and I decide to enchant it, right? I can no longer enchant anything else on this armor, okay? Now, it's a lot cheaper for me to do it on something that is not ancestral, so we're not going to do the ancestral one. We're going to do something like this, okay? Now, let's say that I want to change my maximum life here, okay? If I click on enchant, right, this item is going to be binded to my account. Ready? I'm going to hit accept. Now, I can change that item. It can go from 109 maximum life to damage to injured enemies, 2.9% lucky hit chance, or no change. So basically, the no change here is if you don't see anything that's better than what you have, then you're not going, I wouldn't accept it, right? I'm just gonna keep re-rolling. Now let's say that instead of maximum life, I wanted to do like lucky chance, right? And I replace it. When I come back to enchant this same item, the only thing that I can change on it now is going to be the lucky hit chance because I already worked on that. Okay, so now you see that my lucky hit chance kind of went up. So if lucky hit chance was what I was going after, I can keep replacing it until I get a better one. Okay, now there are a cap for certain things in this game. Okay, as you can see here, it looks like 3.5 might be the max. Maybe I don't remember exactly, but I think 3.8 might be the highest thing here. I'm not too sure. Don't quote me on those numbers. But once again, if you get a legendary and it's almost perfect and you're missing that one thing, you could do your best to try to change that to match your build. I believe that is all that this vendor can do. There's a website called maxroll.gg which allows you to kind of see, you can literally see the max roll on certain on everything in this game. I'm gonna be putting those 4 links in the description. There's one for the map where you can see where everything's at. There's one that can help you out leveling, depending on what class you are on, and so on. We also have a Discord, and we have different rooms for each different character. So if you are looking to, for some help, or you're trying to show your builds off, we have that as well. Okay, we're gonna pick up some gems so I can kind of break down what gems do, and so on. Okay, we're gonna be going to the gem lady. When you're starting out, your gems levels, right, as you're leveling up, you're going to get, better gems. Okay, I believe it is what, 10, then 20, then 30, then 40. So as you're leveling up, you're gonna notice that you're gonna go from chipped to amethyst to flawless to royal. Okay, So it takes three. It takes three of each to get to the next tier. All right. So I need, if I wanted to make an amethyst, I need three of these bad boys to do that. Right. If I need if I need three of these guys to make a flawless, okay, I need three flawlesses to make a royal amethyst. All right. So it basically costs you three of the previous tier to make the next tier. Okay. Royal is the final thing. Royal is like the top of it. So let's start this out, because a lot of people, I seen a lot of my friends just grab gems and throw it all over the place. Okay. So if I'm looking at this gem here, it says this. It says can be inserted into equipment with sockets. All right. First off, your boots and your gloves cannot be socketed. That means that you cannot add sockets to them. Okay. And I'll also show where you can add socket. We're actually at the place that you can do it. But you can see here I'm using the emerald gem. Okay. And it says it can be inserted into equipment with sockets. If I put this into a weapon, I get 12% critical strike damage to vulnerable enemies. If I put this into armor, I get 250 thorns. If I put this into jewelry, I get 22.1 poison resistance. Okay. So if I put this on one thing, it doesn't give me all three. Depending on what I put it into, I get that benefit. If I move over to Royal Diamond, this does a complete different thing for me. Okay. If I put this into a weapon, it gives me 15% plus ultimate skill percentage. Right. If I put this into jewelry, it gives me 8.0 resistance to all elements. And like I said in the past, each one has a different tier. Okay. So chip, I get 9% ultimate skill damage. If I go to diamond, I get 11%. If I go to flawless, I get 13%. If I go to royal, I get 15%. So it goes up the higher your gem is. One neat thing to kind of pay attention to is this. Perfect example. My gear has orange in it topaz, right? Topaz, if I put it into armor, it gives me 10% damage reduction while control impaired. So most of the time, I'm running a melee flurry rogue setup. I'm going to be up close and personal. I'm doing close damage, and this helps me out a lot. Now, if you're looking at my weapons, I currently have on critical strike damage to vulnerable enemies. Why? Because I'm running a build that whenever I use my basic ability, I'm making everything vulnerable. And since I have a build that works really well for it, I'm going to build into that. To me, or for my character, I feel like the emerald, the skull, and the ruby are the most effective things for me. With the topaz, it depends on what I'm doing. There's going to be times where if you're starting out, you're going to use the red one a lot. Why? Because if you put this into armor, it helps out with your maximum life. You're going to notice in my build here, I have 2 gems on my weapon. I have 2 gems on my boots and 2 gems on my chest. These are the only pieces that can get 2 gems, okay? These are the only pieces that can have 2 sockets. And how do you do that? Right here. It's called adding sockets. So if you have anything available in your inventory that allows you to add a socket, you put it up here. And once you put it up here, you need the material in order to add a socket to it. All right. I don't have any items on me right now because I deleted a bunch, but this is how you generally do it. If you want to unsocket something, you do have to come to the jeweler. You can't just like look at your thing and take it out, right? You have to come here to do that. Now, if I want to unsocket something, I click on this little button, I come over here and I unsocket it. Boom, it took it out. It takes both gem out. Another neat thing to kind of pay attention to is this. If you put jewelry onto something and you go to sell it, you're going to get the money for the jewelry and you're going to get the money for the item that you sold, okay? So if you're out there, you're farming and you get a bunch of jewelry, just throw the jewelry onto items that have sockets in it so you can basically sell both of them together. This is also a place where you can upgrade your jewelry. Remember how I upgraded my weapons with the blacksmith? Well, the jeweler allows me to upgrade my jewelry. Boom. I can bring my jewelry up here. All right, so you have 3 slots for your jewelry. You have your amulet, you have your 2 rings, okay? This is the place where you max it out. So that is it for the jeweler. And now we are going to go to the next vendor, who's going to be the obols seller. I call it the obol seller. So in game, there's these events that you do, okay? And when you do these events, they're like these orange circles. I don't know what the color code is for you, but they're normally orange for me. Now, this is basically the currency for the curiosity vendor. It's called obols, all right? And when you come over here, you're going to notice that this is basically like gambling. You're going to buy a bunch of stuff, and you never know what you're going to get. Perfect example, I know I'm going to get bows, but I don't know if I'm going to get a rare, a legendary, a unique, whatever it is. When you come here, you're gambling, okay? Now, of course, the bow, the weapons cost more. I believe the amulet is like right under that with the rings, and then your armor is like the lowest. Here's the thing. Whispering keys is also something that you can buy from the curiosity vendor. If you're out there and you see chests out in the open world and it has a glowing chain on it, you're going to need a whispering key in order to open it. All right? Those chests are called silent chests. So if you ever need to, you can just stack up on a bunch of these. I normally do that when I get full obols. Sometimes I come here, I just stack up a bunch of these, because if I see a curiosity chest, I'm going to open it. Now, are they worth it? I don't really think so, but I still do it anyway because I'm on Copium and I'm hoping to get something good out of it. Now, let's say I have 131 and I'm like, man, I want to get something good here. You'll notice that this is highlighted as ancestral. This is highlighted as sacred. And, okay, none of them are not highlighted. Normally, some of them are not even highlighted at all, okay? So now let's say I want to see if I can get a dagger. That dagger is probably going to be ancestral, right? So if I buy it, boom. I only had enough for 2, right? Did I get an ancestral? No, I didn't get lucky enough. But actually, I did. I did get one right here. So this thing gives me, my God, this thing is like, this is juicy. 20% damage to close enemy, 19.5 ultimate skill damage, 23.0 damage to stun enemies, 16 damage to crowd control, and 39.5 basic skill damage. Okay. And then the next one's like, you're like, whatever. Now, what I can do is this. I can easily look at my aspects and be like, oh, man, maybe I can, like, use one of these, right? Maybe I can imprint one of these. Maybe I can put something onto this weapon. If I wanted to replace my dagger that I have now, and this one says your marksman skills have a chance to drop an arrow at the enemy's location, I'm going to have to go and I'm going to extract the aspect from this guy, and then I'm going to imprint it on here. The cool thing about this is when you have a rare item and you imprint onto it, it's going to turn into a legendary, by the way. I can easily come to this guy here and I'm like, hey, I want to upgrade, right? And I can upgrade this just like this. But if I don't want to upgrade it and I want to get it to the next level, guess what? I can imprint this guy. I can choose from my options here, or I can choose it from my inventory, for example. And the cool thing is, while you're looking at your aspects, like I said, it tells you what is going to get benefited the most, right? And if I do this, you see this? If I put this on, you can see that this item, it becomes a legendary dagger. If I put this on, it becomes a legendary dagger. So it goes from rare to legendary. So that vendor's pretty neat. If you're out there and you're max obols, take that teleport to town and, you know, upgrade what you need to. Now, we do have the stable master. This is where you get your horse. You have to finish Act 3 in the story in order to actually have a horse. So there's different things that you can do here. You can put different accessories on your horse. Now, there is a vendor and you can get different things. Man, this cosmetic armor is almost 6 mil. Godly, oh my Lord. You can have that. You know what I'm saying? I don't want it. Last vendor I spoke about was salvaging, right? When you grab any piece of armor and you come to the blacksmith and you salvage it. Like, perfect example. Let's say that I want to salvage this. Yes. Once I salvage that, if I don't have that if I didn't have that in my collection, it gets added to my collection. And the cool thing is this. You see this right here, this wardrobe? This is where endgame is. This is where you get to change your look. This is where you can, no matter what the armor is, you can have a different look the whole time. All right? This is where you come to change your things. All right? So if you don't like the way your armor looks, this is literally where you come. All right, I want to change my look to look like this, right? You set it up. You can also have different ways for your things to look. Like, you can open up more, right? So you can purchase slots. I might as well just do this now. Right? And you can put different looks here. Now you can do the same thing for your items. You can change the way your item looks. It shows that I still have different things that I need to unlock here. All right? Look, I even have a little backpack. I don't want it though. Thank you. But there, you know, there's a bunch of different daggers in the game, and if you break down those daggers, you're going to get the way that the daggers look. Same thing for your weapons and same thing for your armor. All right? So if you're out there, you're missing stuff, you know, start looking. You know, maybe you didn't salvage the piece that you need yet. But this is where, once again, this is where endgame comes in when it comes to fashion. All right? You can also change what your character looks like. You can change all this if you wanted to. You can literally come in here and, you know, do what you need to do. I left my character on default because I just wanted to get in the game. But now I can come back and change a few things on my character. All right? Now, there's different headstones, okay? When you die, right? Right now, for me, I have the default. If you go in the store, there's one that looks like a tomb, and I don't remember the second one. But you can go to the store, and you can see exactly what that looks like as well. Cosmetics is another end game here. You can literally have your characters looking pretty insane. That is it. That is the breakdown of towns, vendors. I don't want to keep you guys for too long, but that is the intro into Diablo if you're trying to understand how the game works. Now, I'm going to do a different video on, I would say, like, I want to do a video on strength, intelligence, willpower, dexterity. I want to do an entire video on, like, what vulnerable means, what overpower means, damage versus your defensives. That's going to be a completely different thing. But I wanted to break down what your resources are in game and what you could do with it. If you like this kind of content, please make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. We do have a Discord, and we're going to be going into a lot of different Diablo things over the next few months. I'm excited. They have 2 DLCs that they announced that are going to be coming up. And if you have any questions, you can always find me at twitch.tv/Ekuegan. Thank you very much for being here, and I'll see you in the next one. Deuces.